ほら、ルフィ、今一緒に海賊になる仲間を探してるんだ。
Hello guys, welcome to my channel The Wandering Zoro, your go-to destination for anime-related content. And if you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss out on our latest videos. In today's video, we're going to be diving into part 1 of the series What If Izuku Had the Ability to Copy and Upgrade Quirks. So be sure to stick around until the end, and let's get started. On April 3 RD, 2016, a child was born into a world filled of prejudice based on the factors such as the color of one's skin, ethnicity, socioeconomic standing, inequality, and power, but one thing dominates them all. That is what is referred to as meta-abilities or quirks. Mugan Shigaraki has spent more than 2 centuries on our planet. He witnessed the conflict between those with meta-abilities and those who are rapidly becoming quirkless in the pursuit of their rights. He lived through the transition between the 2 eras, when the quirks that were formerly feared in the Quirk era were now praised and worshipped in the Quirk era. Mugan's family was never really good. Coming from a privileged family, he witnessed a lot in life that his younger brother did not. It's all because he made an effort to shield him from the things he went through. His mother detested them because she enjoyed shopping, drinking, smoking, and going to parties. She adores having fun and looking stunning. However, as a result of him, his mother blamed him for ruining her flawless figure from the day he was born. He could only recall the mistreatment he received from his mother. They are never very important to his father. His business, money, women, and illegal narcotics are his only concerns. They are described as the ideal family by others, but in reality, everything about them is perfectly staged to give the impression that they are. Their mother carried Yoichi 6 years later. She attempted to abort him right away, but Mugan discovered it right away. A 6-year-old Mugan went to see the father of the classmate who is well known in the media and, innocently, disclosed that he was going to have a new brother. There are rumors going about, so when Yoichi's lineage severance is scheduled, his mother's secretary informs her of them. This compels her to give birth to Mugan's younger brother. During the delivery, his mother passed away. Alternatively, it might be said that Mugan unintentionally kills her mother when he trips and momentarily disconnects the most crucial machine's outlet. He was able to conceal it so that nobody saw it. Mugan experienced only happiness in the wake of his mother's passing. When he was 6 years old, he raised his brother by himself in the company of maids who provided them with little more than food and entertainment. 6-year-old Mugan was made to teach himself how to read and write, enroll in school, and take care of his brother by doing everything in his power. For the sake of his brother, he had to act more responsibly, while attempting to come up with a reason why only the maid attends his school, since his father is indifferent. When Mugan discovered he had meta-abilities, he was 10 years old. When he unintentionally took the quirk of a student. When the girl realized she had a meta-ability, she became terrified and frightened. When Mugan unintentionally took it, the girl rejoiced. At first, he tried to hide his fear. At this age, he also discovered that his brother had a fragile constitution. He was confined in many ways. When Mugan, a 10-year-old child, learned what had happened to his sibling, he experienced his first significant breakdown. Everything was normal up to the death of his father, at which point he inherited everything at the age of 19. Despite being cut off from the outside world, Mugan picks up a lot of knowledge and succeeds in running the Shigaraki Corporation. The Shigaraki Corp is thriving despite the mayhem. He rose to prominence as one Japan's most powerful individual at the age of 25, which causes many businesses to express their discontent. They searched and succeeded in finding something to destroy. Unintentionally, one of the maids noticed Mugan utilizing his quirk to cheer up Yoichi. He keeps Yoichi from seeing the true world outside because he is a little too protective of him. Yoichi calls for justice for those with meta-abilities who were killed in hate campaigns, but he is too naive to see that rallies have plunged Japan and many other nations into the Dark Age. Because of the maid, Yoichi was taken back when Mugan's meta-ability was made public. The only reason Mugan's firm went bankrupt was due of his meta-abilities. Mugan, who is 25 years old, was raised in a poisonous home and developed a pessimistic view of the world. Mugan is exceptionally intelligent as a result of having to mature at a young age. He chose to take the lead and advocate for people's equal rights. He He began trading meta abilities back and forth, building a sizable following in the process. As his influence grew, the government began sending assassins to put an end to him, but ultimately fails because those assassins either give up on him or come to his aid. His brother began to view him as a monster because of the numerous crimes and evil things he committed for a good cause. Yoichi's ignorance and the servants' murmur didn't help. Thus, Mugan makes his own brother undergo a quirk in case Yoichi is targeted by assassins. Yoichi, however, began to resist against him rather than feel thankful. The fact that he is under constant pressure to lead the rebels didn't help either. Mugan began to disintegrate. Yoichi is in a vault because of his growing paranoia and worry, which he did to ensure that his brother is safe. When Yoichi was finally freed by the military, things didn't go as planned. Mugan looked for Yoichi. However, he was not the Yoichi he knew when he was found. Yoichi was shrewd. Several of his ideas had been completely derailed. However, he took no action regarding that, which his supporters find extremely annoying. They parted ways when they reached that place. The other organization that evolved into the Meta Liberation Front. Yoichi perishes during one of their group's raid in front of Mugan. He passes away defending the person he views as his savior. The guy with the spiky, ash-blonde hair. This wears heavily on Mugan's mental state, that he lost his moral compass and began to act calculatingly and coldly. Those who remain faithful to him are the ones who go out into the world to support Mugan. There are only 500 followers that stick around. He gave them long life and traveled the globe to disseminate Mugan's impact. When he learned of One for All, it was too late. All of it is a result of the same quirk as his sibling. He looked into it and discovered that Yoichi had passed on his peculiarity to the man with the ash-blonde, spiky hair. Acknowledging his brother's legacy, he desired to acquire it and potentially have a conversation with his deceased sibling therein. He was aware that vestiges always leave a trace of their owners. He was aware beforehand, but he was nevertheless able to eliminate them and claim the quirk as his own. Since the second user is the reason Yoichi died, he hunts him down and finishes him. Before realizing that Mugan is merely defending the rights of those with meta abilities, he was killed. Although his approach may be dubious, Mugan is now unable to come up with a workable solution. Finding his brother's oddball user has never been easy for him, particularly the third, fourth, and second users. He simply never stops battling for equal rights. Even after a century, Mugan is still very much in motion. His company, Biotto Corporation, was founded under a different name, without anyone recognizing him as their superior. Those who work with him have never been able to figure out who the CEO is. He created and severely enforced a great deal of rules. As in, nobody was permitted to discriminate against others, whatever it may be their quirk or lack thereof, social standing, employment, or even skin tone and preferred gender. Discrimination of any kind is absolutely prohibited. Because of this, many of their employees have been sacked, and Mugan has never cared about them. Everyone will always feel safe working at this company. He instituted a 4-day workweek, with Thursdays off. They are still compensated for 5 days. Their pay is double what it ought to be. The workers put out more effort at work than they usually would as a result. When Mugan was 225 years old, he met Inko Midoriya. As Inko applied to be a staff member of Biotto Corp and a freelance physician for one of Mugan's hospitals, he is going by the name Hisashi Biotto. She loved how Biotto Corporation fought for equality and had a strong sense of justice. As long as you are skilled, have a great desire to learn, and are not prejudiced against the position of others, you are welcome to apply to this organization. He developed feelings for her, the first love of his long existence. But since he was already 2 centuries old, it didn't feel right. Since he played the part of the necessary evil to halt the HPSC, he also realized in his heart that he is a villain. He does not wish to endanger Inko's life, but when it's all over, it appears like fate is playing him. "You think you love me?" Inko asks, turning her stunning eyes to him. Mugan noticed his ears starting to get hot, and him feel like an adolescent. "It is irrelevant, Ms. Midoriya," Mugan stated forcefully. "I don't want you to enter my world." He looked away, his heart pounding. Inko grinned and laughed. Inko asks, quoting the word villain, "Because you are a villain?" Naturally, Mugan was taken aback. How could Inko have known? "After reviewing your background, I discovered many gaps. You were aware of my preference for doing research before acting on an idea. It makes no difference if you are 100 years old, a villain, or all for one. It matters whether you want to dedicate your life to me and love me. Is Mr. Biotto your true love? Inko inquire. He adores her the most since she is a strong, independent lady. That day, when they gave it a go, Mugan experienced happiness for the first time. He had never felt anything else than the unadulterated joy of love and please. When Inko was 25, they got married and at 26 had Izuku. On July 15th at night, Inko delivers Izuku with Dr. Ujiko's assistance. At that moment, there is a thunderstorm and it is raining outside. The thought of his oldest son's impending birth unnerved him. Makia is keeping watch over the hidden medical wing where they are located. He took care to keep the news of his impending parenthood under wraps. Izuku Shigaraki was born during the period of time when the loudest thunderstorm occurred. Though he utilizes Inko's name to keep him safe, that was his true name. That evening, he made Izuku a backup plan, such as having one knowledgeable supporters take up his studies, several emergency bank accounts, safe houses, a whole new identity in case something goes wrong, and of course, requesting Makia to keep his wife and child safe. He tried to safeguard his future as much as possible out of paranoia in case something went wrong. At least his family will be safe, just like in the end. Madam, just one more push, and I can see the head, satiated Dr. Ujiko. Inko grips Mugan's hand tightly and squeezes them. She yelled so loudly that Izuku left. Dr. Ujiko asks, What? What transpires? With concern, Mugan inquires. He doesn't really care if Inko's squeeze caused an injury to his hand. He is obviously frightened and experiencing an adrenaline rush. The baby isn't crying, stated Dr. Ujiko. Mugan turned to face Izuku after wiping away all of the vital fluid from his body. After the delivery, the nurse helped Inko fall asleep. Mugan received Izuku from Dr. Ujiko. He takes him cautiously as Izuku looks at him. Mugan smiled at Izuku, causing him to cry. Izuku, I'm your father. Izuku appears to know him right away and tried to grab Mugan's finger. He holds Mugan's one finger in his little hands and smiles. It appears that young master is quite intelligent. If everything is okay, we will run some tests to be sure. A newborn not crying after being outside is really strange, according to Dr. Ujiko. Mugan remarked, as long he is safe and healthy. He looked at Izuku and Izuku looked back at him. Son, the doctor would just test something. Please be careful, and we'll get to see you later. Izuku let out a sound following their conversation. He handed him over to Ujiko, so he could observe the testing procedure. After Makia, the wing's guard, gained permission to enter, he saw Izuku for the first time. It's my son, he. Will you shield him, Makia? Mugan queries. I will protect young master. Makia stated resolutely. It is confirmed after an hour that Izuku did, in fact, have a high IQ for baby and will only go higher as he gets older. Izuku has had a fantastic 5 months since his birth. He has always had an inquisitive mind and would constantly come up with methods to wow his parents. Mugan was traveling home one day when All Might Current One for All Wielder and Symbol of Peace barred him. It was too late. Mugan attempted to flee and warn Makia and the doctor to remove Izuku and Inko so they wouldn't learn of his family. He had to initiate the emergency protocol where Dr. Ujiko would obliterate all proof that he ever had a family and Makia would go into hiding until the time came to return to the family. Because the HPSC had breached his emergency money expect one in Inko's name and the safe houses with his company, and as a precaution, Inko would inject herself with a memory eraser that would replace her memories with false memories of her marrying a hero that died too long ago. Mugan held a copy of Inko's memories in case he ever met her again. He fought All Might in a devastating battle after the protocol was sent, which left him unable of mending and in need of medical equipment to survive. He then fled into hiding until he could see his child and wife again. A quirk is a special, superhuman ability an individual can possess. Quirks are generally unique to their user and are classified in multiple categories. The first person to manifest a quirk was a newborn baby in the city of Quig, China. They were born with the ability to emanate light from their body. After the incident, many people around the world began to manifest different kinds of special abilities, though the cause of the phenomenon was unknown. Currently, 95% of the world population possesses a quirk, leaving the other 5% who are considered quirkless. which mostly consists of the elderly that lived in the era of the dawn and officialization of quirks. The new era of quirkless people are rare in this superhuman world, meaning they are nearly extinct. But the cause of extinction is far worse than you can imagine. During the years, people started to see the quirkless people as nothing but a disease that must be identified and exterminated, so that it wouldn't taint the very earth of the quirked individuals that deemed themselves superior, depending on the level of power their quirks possess. But there is a different problem with this quirked society. During the last 200 years, some people also developed quirks that are dangerous by appearance and would cause alarm in the general public. These quirks are what people nowadays call villainous quirks, and that they were a danger to society. This caused discrimination to evolve to a new level, causing fights to break out in public and people openly attacking others who were deemed villains just because of their quirk. So the government implemented a system that serves to protect the citizens of the quirk society by fighting off people that were merely acting in self-defense, but society labeled them as villains, and the people that have quirks that are acceptable in a quirky society were to be labeled heroes. So this started an eternal cycle of hatred amongst people that are still human, but the other thinks itself superior, just because they have power which is deemed acceptable. But enough about the history lesson. Let's get to why you're here. We see a 4-year-old, white-haired boy that had 4 diamond-shaped freckles on both of his cheeks. He had emerald green eyes that sparkled with excitement and joy to learn about what kind of power he would soon possess. In his hand, he had a figurine that depicted the greatest hero to ever live. He was the symbol of peace, All Might. The 4-year-old child, who went by Izuku Midoriya, was currently seating beside a 30-year-old green-haired woman that also had green eyes that were a shade lighter. Those eyes held love and a desire to protect her son no matter what. This woman is Inko Midoriya. An hour had passed since the doctor did the test to see whether or not that Izuku had a quirk or quirks. The doctor did simply blood tests and x-rays, which was a common routine that helped make sure that the child was healthy and also helped determine what kind of quirk they may possess. The doctor walked into the room with a grim expression plastered on his face. He had the results on a clipboard that he held with a vice-like grip. To Inko, those signs did not look good, so she checked on her son to see if he had noticed, but unfortunately he was oblivious to what's to come, and that hurt her more than anything. The doctor cleared his throat before speaking. Doctor, greetings Mrs. Midoriya and Izuku. I have your son's results in my hands, and I wish to say something before I relay them to you. Do you understand? Inko, of course we understand. But you're starting to worry me. Doctor, well, you see, since the dawn of quirks, not many people understood how or why they started to appear, and still today, we haven't found anything that helpful. Only that people who possesses a quirk have a quirk factor that is deep within their body and DNA, waiting for the body to adjust for the activation process to occur. Inko, yes, I do know that, but you really haven't explained to me on why you're telling us this. Doctor, I'm telling you this because there are some people that are not born with a quirk factor, meaning they would be quirkless for the rest of their lives. Little Izuku was starting to catch on what the doctor was trying to explain, and he was starting to get anxious. Doctor, which brings me to this. I regret to inform you that Izuku Midoriya will never develop a quirk. I'm truly sorry. Time seemed to stop for young Izuku Midoriya. He let go of his All Might figurine and had a broken expression on his face. Izuku, I'm quirkless. I won't be able to become a hero just like I wanted, just like All Might, he thought. Inko had a worried look because she knew that his life will get harder from here on out. But little did she know that she too would have a hard life just like her precious son. Inko, Doctor, are you sure there isn't a mistake somewhere that might have caused an error? Doctor, well, we did the proper testing method by checking your son's blood cells and x-rays of his foot and skeletal system, and they all came back negative for a quirk, meaning he won't manifest a quirk anytime soon. I'm sorry. Inko, well, thank you, Doctor. We'll be taking our leave now. Inko and Izuku got out of the office and walked to the train station to head home. The way home was quiet. Both of them never said a word until they got home. Upon arriving home, Inko brings her son into a bone-crushing motherly hug that held sorrow and forgiveness. She was crying in the crook of his neck, telling him that she was sorry for being such a useless mother for not giving him a quirk. Izuku held her mother dearly to deepen the hug because he too was apologizing for not having a power. They stayed like that for 5 minutes and decided to go to bed early because it was a texting day for the both of them. Izuku slept in her mother's bed, keeping him close to her throughout the night to make sure he was safe. You might be wondering where's the boy's father. Well, he disappeared 2 months before Izuku's birth. The man had white hair and piercing red eyes, and he had a fire-breathing quirk. When they investigated where he might have went, they found that he was murdered on his back to Japan after a mission that required him to go to America. He was a hero in the land of the rising sun and the United States. Inko was devastated to hear that her husband died before he could meet his only child, because after the birth of her son, she found out that she could never have any more children. But there is an upside to this. Hisashi Midoriya left a will that will states that all assets will be transferred to his wife, Inko Midoriya, and his son, Izuku Midoriya. That was his last gift. He made sure that they would live comfortably for 8 years or so, but Inko decided to still work because she didn't know when the money would be used up. Inko and Izuku woke up late at around 12:30 a.m., but they didn't care, so they stayed in because it was the weekend, so Izuku didn't have to go to school. They decided to spend as much time together as possible because they didn't know what would be in store for them on Monday. It was morning for the little Midoriya family. They slowly got out of bed to get ready for the day. Inko woke up first and decided to have a shower to fully wake her up so she could start preparing breakfast and get herself ready for work and readying Izuku for preschool. That's when it hit her. They were probably going to ask him to present what type of quirk he possessed, which would cause a whole lot of problems. She decided to keep that out of her mind until the end of the day. Maybe they might not treat him any less because he doesn't have a unique ability. So she got done with her shower and getting ready for work. She started making breakfast before waking Izuku up. She made a simple but healthy breakfast of bacon, eggs, toast, sausage, and cheese with a side of fruit and juice to wash it down. Once she's down, she went to wake up her son so he can go get ready. He sleepily made his way out of bed and walked into the shower. He looked so adorable. I just hope that adorable face stays the same. Izuku finished with his shower and dressed up in his preschool uniform and made his way downstairs to his mother, waiting for him, and arrived at the kitchen table so they could eat. They said their thanks and started eating until there was nothing left. Inko washed the dishes and set them out to dry. The two left the apartment and made their way to the train station to go to the center of Mizudafu, where Izuku's preschool is and where Inko worked at, which was a hospital 5 blocks away. This meant they weren't too far from each other in case there was an emergency. Inko dropped her son off and gave him a big hug before leaving. Now we see a little Izuku Midoriya making his way to his class and was not ready for what's to come. He entered the class and greeted the teacher and went to his table where he shared it with his best friend, Katsuki Bakugo, or what he calls him, Kaken. They've been best friends since from as far back as he can remember. The boy is a tough and prideful, but also strong. He admired his strength most of all. Yesterday he got his quirk. It's called Explosion. He can secrete a nitroglycerin-like sweat and can make it explode with the palms of his hands. Izuku hoped he wouldn't get mad about him not having a quirk since they did promise to compete for the title of #1 hero. Izuku greeted him, and the day started off as normal until towards the end, where people started presenting their quirks. Everyone went, showcasing how cool and unique they were until it was his turn. Teacher. So, Izuku, what quirk do you have and how does it work? He was really nervous because everyone had their eyes on him. So he took a deep breath and said, Izuku, well, I'm actually QQ quirkless. Once he said that there was a deafening silence that enveloped the room, until there was a snicker that turned into a full-blown laughter that came from none other than his childhood friend, Kaken. The class followed suit and started laughing their butts off. Izuku looked at the teacher for help, but what he saw told him everything that he needed to know of what's to come. The teacher had a scowl on her face and a look of disgust that made him think that he did something wrong. The class quickly calmed down enough for the teacher to dismiss everyone, but there were still some snickers here and there. Almost the whole school knew he was quirkless, but the worst part was that his once thought to be best friend pulled him in the back of the school with his lackeys when they got there. Kaken said to him, Bakugo, hey Izuku, I thought that we're supposed to be the next #1 heroes, but no, you just had to be quirkless. I always knew you were useless. Lackey #1. Yeah, useless. Lackey #2. Oh look, he wants to cry. What Izuku heard hurt him deeply and looked up to Kaken only to be met with an explosion to the face that knocked him into the wall and slowly slid down. clutching his burnt face and damaged nose. Bakugo. And that's what happens when you lie to me, you useless, quirkless Deku. Deku, that what's he started calling him, it meant useless, which at the moment, he felt useless. He couldn't defend himself and let them beat him up until he was unconscious, and they just left him there. Meanwhile, Inko walked into the hospital feeling a bit anxious since she was worried for her son's well-being. She just hoped he was okay. She changed into her nurse uniform and got ready. Everything went normally for the most part, but she began to hear whispers around the hospital about something, but she wasn't sure what it was, so she ignored it for the time being. It was time for lunch, and she went to the cafeteria to get food, but once she opened the door, everyone stopped what they were doing and looked at her with faces filled with disgust, amusement, and hatred. She didn't know why they looked at her like that until she found herself hit by something behind the back of her head. She looked behind to see that it was a female coworker that was holding a food tray looking at her with hate. Then she walked towards her and said, "Female coworker, I always knew you were bad at your job, but to think you would be this disappointing by giving birth to a quirkless child. You disgust me." Inko looked at her in shock, thinking on how she found out. She remembered that her coworker was the sister of the homeroom teacher of her son. That's how she found out. Inko managed to get back on her feet and looked at the woman with anger. What the woman said was truly hurtful to her. "Female coworker. God, I wish you would just leave this place because you are nothing but a defective where that gave life to a disease." After that, she left her there, thinking about what just happened. Then she thought of her son and if he was okay. She packed up her stuff and told the director of the hospital that it was a family emergency. So she quickly made her way to the school and found it was mostly empty. She looked around and found Izuku lying there under a tree unconscious, but there were bruises and cuts everywhere. She gently picked him up and went back home. People were giving her strange looks because her son looked half dead and was fading in and out of consciousness. Once they got off the train, they made it home just after 6 in the afternoon. It was nighttime, so she had to put him in bed, but first she needed to clean his wounds and replace them with fresh ones. While she was patching him up, she did her best to also clean his body from all the dirt and dried blood. After she gently placed him in her bed, and she too cleaned herself up and made sure she didn't have a concussion before going to bed. She laid down next to her son and pulled him into a gentle hug that she missed dearly. This was only the beginning of their suffering. 14 years. 14 years was how long they were abused by this cruel society. 14 years of suffering for something they had no control over. 14 years of being at the business end of people trying to keep them down or erase them from this planet. But they had a plan that could set them free from this corrupt society so that they could live normal lives that didn't involve pain or suffering. You're probably wondering what that plan was. If you want to know, then we'd have to go back to when Izuku turned 10. Izuku and Inko have not been living normal lives ever since the first day of the attack. Things have been getting worse, ranging from physical assault, docking pay, openly ridiculing them in front of everyone, whether it be at school or work. They were everyone's punching bag, but on one particular day, something happened that both couldn't imagine happening to someone else. It was Izuku's birthday today. He was turning 10. His body still hurts from yesterday's beating, but something felt off about that last one. It felt like they were purposely holding back for reasons he didn't understand. Not wanting to be late for school, he slowly got out of bed, careful not to reopen any of his wounds. His mother had been a big help in bandaging him up and even taught him the basics of first aid in case something happened and he was alone, or if his mother also gets the same treatment as him at work for having a quirkless son. So they assault her not in that way every day to remind her that she was a defective mother that can only give birth to trash. Izuku and Inko have scars all over their bodies, ranging from burn scars to deep cuts and acid burns. He's more scarred than his mother because the children at his school don't hold back and they actively try to hurt him. But he's too stubborn to die because he still wanted to be a hero and refuses to leave Inko alone. Izuku fights for his life every day just to see his mother and hug her, knowing she also suffers the same fate as him. He tried to make her quit her job, but she insisted on keeping it since it's still a well-paying job. Even though they dock her pay, but it's still enough to live a comfortable life, or as comfortable as can be. The money his father left them is still there and untouched. She's planning on saving as much as possible so that when Izuku graduates middle school, they could move to the more quirkless side of Japan. Japan has a town that mostly consists of the quirkless and people that have weak Quirks or villainous quirks, where they don't discriminate and mostly help each other out. Izuku made his way to the bathroom and took a warm shower, washing away all the sleep from his body. When he finished, he went back to his room to get dressed in his worn-out uniform that had stitches at specific areas. This is because his uniform would nearly get destroyed every time they assaulted him. He put it on and made his way down the hall to find his mother already dressed in her work clothes. On the table was a healthy breakfast and 2 muffins to celebrate his birthday. Over the years, he started wanting smaller birthdays so that they could save up more on money. At first, her mother wasn't pleased with this, but changed her mind after a bit of convincing. He told her that the birthday party wasn't really important, only that he could spend it with her and vice versa with her birthday. Every birthday, they spent it together, doing normal mother and son activities. His mother greeted him with a gentle hug since she too was in pain, but also noticed that yesterday something was off. After they separate, they sat down and started eating. During breakfast, Izuku asked her mother something. Izuku, Mom, do you feel like something was off yesterday? Inko looked at her son and thought about what he just said. This can't be a coincidence. Inko, something did feel off. It's like they were planning something. Izuku didn't like this, so he suggested that they keep their guard up in case something happened, which they hoped never happens, but they both know that's not true. Inko, Izuku, how much evidence do you currently have? Izuku, maybe 3 books full, but I still need more so this plan can work. What about you? Inko, I'm still missing a few pages, but I'm getting there. You're probably wondering what plan they were talking about. The plan was to get as much evidence as they can acquire, so that they could deposit it to various news stations, police departments, and maybe the government. The reason they're doing this is because whenever they reported the abuse they experienced or made statements, they always meet up with a police officer that throws away the statements whenever they leave and acts like the statements were lost in a pile of paperwork, even though he was clearly lying. So they made this plan and hoped it would work, but it was still missing some key pieces of evidence. Izuku and Inko finished their breakfast and washed the dishes soon after they left their apartment and headed to the train station. But the bad feeling they felt didn't go away as they made their way to Izuku's school and Inko's workplace. Izuku made it to school and said his goodbyes to his mother before making his way to class, but that feeling kept on getting more intense the closer he got. When he opened the door, he found that class was about to begin, so he made his way to his desk, but that feeling kept on getting worse. He felt like he was walking through a blazing fire of death, ready to claim his soul for being born the wrong way. He made it to seat, but made contact with the chair, he felt someone grab his head and smash it full force into the table, knocking him out. Before he lost consciousness, he heard them say something. Get him to the gymnasium and prepare the hashtag. While this was happening, something disturbingly similar was happening to his mother, albeit in a more professional manner. 10 minutes earlier, Inko just said goodbye to her son and made her way to the hospital, but the closer she got, the more the bad feeling started to grow and slowly rising with each passing step until she made it to the front of the hospital. Standing there, she felt the air getting heavy, but she pushed through and went inside so she could get changed into her nurse's uniform. On her way to the changing room, she felt many eyes on her, and that only made the intense feeling rise. She made it into the changing room to find it empty, which she was glad until she heard someone enter and cover her nose and mouth with something that smelled like chloroform. She tried to fight back, but that just made the toxin take effect quicker and was losing consciousness, but before she faded into black, she managed to hear someone say, "Take her to the parking lot and prepare the hashtag. Izuku woke up to the sound of people talking animatedly. He couldn't make out what they were saying because his ears were ringing and found it hard to move. He looked down to his hands and found them tired up, and he was kneeling down on a stage. He looked forward and found the whole school was there in the hall, all seated and waiting for something to happen. Izuku was starting to panic until he heard someone come up the stage and hushed everyone. "Okay, everyone, calm yourselves. We don't have a lot of time to do this, so silence." Izuku knew that voice. That was his principal, but why was he here and why was he tied up? But before he could question his predicament even more, the principal continued talking. "Principal, today is a special day for a very special person, and we are here to celebrate the birth of a disease that refuses to die. Today we are going to celebrate the birth of Izuku Midoriya." Everybody started cheering. But those cheers weren't cheers of joy, but of sick joy because they were about to witness something that would leave a mark on society. Principle. And what better way to celebrate this day is by leaving our brand on this diseased child that believes to be on our level, and who better to leave that brand is none other than our own protege and future #1 hero, Katsuki Bakugo. The cheering became louder as their #1 hero, Izuku's old friend and lead torturer, walked up the stage with a swagger to his steps that showed power and confidence, but mostly ego. He stood next to the principal and just stared at the back of Izuku. The principal moved forward and ripped up his shirt, exposing his scarred body that looked like he went to hell and back 10 times a day for every day of his life. The principal then took out a marker and wrote something on his back, and a few seconds later, he felt something sharp carve out what he wrote. Izuku was screaming in pain, trying to get himself free, but his struggles were in vain. The carving stopped, and he thought it was over until he heard small explosions that sound like a firecracker. The sound was getting closer and closer until he could feel a heat on his back. Then came the sound of flesh being burnt. Izuku screamed his lungs out because of the unbearable pain and almost lost consciousness, but the pain kept him from going under, so he had to endure it until it was over. His back was in pain, and the wound they gave him spelled out a word that truly defines what they labeled him to be. The wound on his back said, or in English, it said Deku. That word alone told everyone who sees it that he was a useless, quirkless Deku. After they were done, they let him down. His head hit the floor, finally knocking him out. They didn't just leave him there, so they got him up, and he was thrown outside, under a tree. He was just lying there face down with his back to the sky, showing the world what he is. 2 hours later, Inko came to get her son. She looked very disoriented, but was still standing. She made it to the school only to find her son unconscious with a word burned into his back. She acted quickly and covered her son in a jacket she had with her and slowly woke him up. He was in pain, but he managed to stand up. The both of them made their way to the train station and waited for their train to arrive. Along the way, people were giving them questioning looks, but they didn't bother to ask if they were okay. The train arrived, and they got on. The cart was empty with only them on board. After 15 minutes, they made it to their stop and walked to the apartment building. When they got there, Inko immediately rushed her son into the bathroom and told him to remove his clothes and get in the shower. She then turned on the warm water and put her son in. He groaned in pain because the water was burning his back, but he endured. After a few minutes, he came out wet and tired. Inko took him to his room and told him to lay down face first, so his back was facing her. She was very disgusted of what she saw before she bandaged him. She took a picture for the evidence file they were making and got to work bandaging his whole back. It took an hour to finish, and she was feeling exhausted, so she decided to also take a bath. When she turned around to leave, Izuku saw that her back was stained red and grabbed his mother before she left. She saw him looking at her back and sighed. She removed her shirt and revealed that she too was branded. The brand said, meaning defective. She was in pain. So Izuku helped her to the bathroom and did the exact same thing she did for him. Once she was done with her shower, she laid face down, back up, and Izuku started bandaging her whole back. But for him it took an hour and 30 minutes. They were now just sitting on the sofa, staring into space until a thought came to mind. Izuku, Mom, I think we should wait until the last week of my 3rd year of middle school, so that when we have enough evidence, we can get everyone involved to go to jail, and the futures of many will be ruined permanently. She looked at him for a second and just hugged him. Inko knew that her son was right and agreed to wait until that last week before handing in everything. For the next 5 years, these two endured the torture that no human should ever suffer. Their bodies scarred to a sickening degree, but it would all have been worth it until the day came. Izuku was 14 years old now. He and his mother had prepared everything. They made copies of every piece of evidence they had, and also made digital copies just in case something happened to the original. They both went to the post office, mailed every piece of information to news stations and police departments around Japan. Now all they had to do was wait, and wait they did, until one day something happened that changed their lives. Izuku Midoriya was having a flashback when he was younger, trying to protect a girl with pink hair and sniper scopes for eyes from his old childhood friend that has gotten worse over the years. But his thoughts were interrupted by a slight earthquake and shouting in the street next to him. Being the curious boy he is, he made his way over to the street even though he knew he would be late for school, if you can call it that. He made it to the street to see there was a hero battling against an enormous villain, so he pulled out a notebook to record the fight and figure out what type of quirk the villain has. Backdraft, a water-based hero, was helping with crowd control to keep the citizens at a safe distance, while Kimui Woods, a rising hero in the making after his debut 2 years ago, and has been making headlines since then, was engaged in a battle with the villain. Kimui Woods, villain, you are under arrest for illegal quirk usage, vandalism of public property, and endangerment of civilian lives. Illegal quirk usage has been a law for the past 100 years or so, which prevents people from using their quirks in public, and in one way would be for self-defense in case no heroes or law enforcement was around to help them. Kimui Woods was preparing to capture the villain by using his capture move called Lacquered Chain Prison on him to attempt to stop his movements. However, a giant flew over them and drop-kicked the villain, knocking him out, but also causing some property damage. The giant was revealed to be none other than MT Lady. She's also a rising star. After debuting a year ago, several people started photographing the heroine and her assets, while she also posed for the cameras. Izuku was fascinated by the quirk that he dubbed Gigantification, which allows the user to enlarge themselves to the height of tall buildings. Izuku was writing everything he could about the quirk, strengths, weaknesses, and applications on ways to improve on it. He was so lost in his notebook that he didn't hear the old man next to him ask a question about if he was aiming to be a hero, which he was a bit embarrassing to admit. He told him he was interested, making the old man wish him good luck on his journey, to which Izuku happily answered, "Izuku, I'll do my best." The reason Izuku wants to be a hero was to change society for the better and fix the laws they have on discrimination, so that less people would suffer the life he is currently suffering. He wants to help people that are outcast in society because of their lack of a quirk, weak quirk, mutation, or villainous quirk. He wants to change society so that everyone is equal and they are not judged on the quirk status, financial status, or their appearance, but live equally. But he knew it would be a hard task since he didn't have the power or influence to actually make changes, but he would work very hard to achieve that goal no matter what. During the later years of his life, Izuku trained his body, lean, fast, and strong, not to fight, but to survive. He never fought back. Experience taught him that fighting back only brought more punishment. His body was a map of scars, each one a memory of beatings from classmates and sometimes teachers. That morning, Izuku sprinted to school, knowing he'd still be punished, early or not. Aldera Junior High, a place he'd come to fear. Since being declared quirkless, the bullying followed him from school to school. They'd even tamper with his grades to keep him beneath the quirked. To survive, he dumbed himself down, hiding a genius intellect that could earn him PhDs. He reached class early, head down. The teacher entered, tossed papers in the air, and barked, "Deku, clean that up." Another day, another humiliation. As always, Izuku complied quietly. Bakugo stood proudly, declaring he was the only one worthy of UA High. The teacher added with a smirk, "Even Deku wants to go." Laughter filled the room. Then came the explosion. Bakugo blasted Izuku into the wall, again. "You quirkless piece of trash. Don't even try," Bakugo sneered. Izuku, trying to defend himself, got another explosion to the chest. The teacher didn't care. He only reminded Bakugo to wait till after school. Izuku returned to his seat, pulled out his burned hero notebook, and kept his head down. After class, Bakugo found his notebook and destroyed it. Before walking out, he gave the cruelest advice yet. Why not swan dive off the roof and hope you're reborn with a quirk? Izuku was left shattered. That wasn't some stranger, it was someone he once called a friend. He found his ruined notebook in the schoolyard pond and walked home, using a shortcut to avoid everyone. Lost in thought, he didn't notice the manhole cover behind him shift. A green, slime-like villain emerged. "Hey kid, I need your body," the villain said with a toothy grin. Before Izuku could react, he was engulfed, choking, panicking, suffocating. His vision dimmed. "So, this is how I die?" Then, a voice thundered through the tunnel. "Never fear, because I am here." With a mighty swing, the villain was obliterated by wind pressure. Texas smosh. Izuku coughed violently as air returned to his lungs. A giant silhouette stood above him, glowing with confidence. "All Might," he gasped. The symbol of peace smiled and helped him up. You're alive. You distracted him long enough for me to catch up. Good job. Izuku, dazed but grateful, clutched his burned notebook. Before All Might could leave, he gathered his courage. He had one question he had to ask. But before he could speak, All Might leapt into the air. Without thinking, Izuku grabbed onto his leg and held on tight. After All Might said that, he left through the rooftop exit and used the stairs to get to ground level, leaving a broken Izuku on the roof. Reflecting on every decision he ever made to be here and wondered where he went wrong. What did he do to deserve this? Then it hit him. He was born quirkless. He remembered the words Bakugo told him, and he looked over to the edge of the building. He slowly walked over, and when he reached the edge, he looked down and saw he was pretty high up, high enough to kill him on impact. Izuku started having flashbacks of his shitty life, all the pain he's experienced, all the suffering has caused his mother to endure. Everything came crashing down on him until he felt something. Something very foreign, but also felt like it has always been a part of him. Then it happened. A small screen appeared in front of him with the words stating, "Necessary conditions fulfilled, Quirk awakened. Advanced All for One unlocked." Advanced All for One grants the user the ability to take, give, combine, copy, split, and evolve or devolve quirks. Subfunctions of Advanced AFO. Quirk Synergy. Whenever a quirk or quirks of similar nature are found, they will fuse into a new quirk that grants them new abilities. Quirk Sight grants the user the ability to see the quirk or quirks of people, giving them a basic description of what type of quirk they possess, how it works, and what drawbacks they possess. Evolution. Any quirk the user possess will be upgraded to its final stage of evolution, while also removing any harmful drawbacks. Split. If a quirk has two or more factors, it would split them apart and into their parent quirks. Combine grants the user ability to combine quirks that allow them to create specific effects that can be helpful or harmful depending on the combination. Copy grants the user the ability to permanently copy any quirk and stockpile it into a quirk catalog for easier access. Failsafe. This is a safety measure that prevents Advanced All for One from being taken, copied, or destroyed. Near Tatooine Station, Katsuki Bakugo and his smoking buddies were having a conversation, and one of them brought up Bakugo's advice to Izuku. They knew that they wanted him dead, but didn't think Bakugo would actually say it to his face. Sure, he has been sent death threats before, but this felt different. Bakugo, the quirkless brat, deserves everything that comes his way, because why was he even born? If he wasn't here, the world would have been a better place if that nerd just gave up on living. While Bakugo was giving his Deku dehumanization speech, he kicks a bottle of the trapped sludge villain and accidentally freed him. Now he was looking for a new host and found the explosive Pomeranian in his eyesight. This was his lucky day. Meanwhile, Izuku was still on the roof, still looking at the screen that said he unlocked his quirk, and he was speechless. He didn't know what to do at the moment. Izuku, Advanced All for One. After those words, there was an explosion not too far from where he was, and slowly made his way down the building, walking in the direction of the smoke rising up from that area. When he got a bit closer, he saw the villain that attacked him a few minutes ago and wondered how he escaped, but then remembers that when he grabbed All Might's leg, he must have knocked the bottle out of his pocket, so this means it was his fault for this current attack. When he got a bit closer, he saw that the villain had a hostage, and it was none other than Katsuki Bakugo. This isn't the Bakugo he knew. This was a Bakugo that was scared that he might lose his life. When Izuku got to the front, he found that the heroes weren't doing nothing to rescue him. The only useful person here was Backdraft, who was trying to control the fire, but the rest were complaining about not having the right quirk for the job, which was stupid because Izuku had already thought of multiple plans to rescue that Pomeranian. But then he remembered that he recently awakened his quirk but didn't know how to use it yet, so he had an idea. He thought he could copy the quirks of the current heroes here and learn how to use them later, so that was his plan. He slowly made his way to each hero and tapped their backs, which immediately notified him of the new addition. Water Pump copied. Water Pump evolved Water Manipulation. Arbor copied. Arbor evolved Wood Manipulation. The reason he didn't copy Death Arm's quirk was that it was strictly an arm-based strength enhancer, not a full-body one, which he'll try to find eventually. But now he had to save that idiot and probably copy his quirk. Izuku rushes out of the crowd and made it past the heroes that were yelling at him to come back, but didn't try to physically stop him. He observed the situation and found that the only solid thing on that villain were its eyes. So he made a plan, but he had to act fast, or he would probably die. The villain attacked Izuku by shooting its sludge at him, but he barely dodged them, and did a spin move where he spun his bag and launched it to the villain's eye, which loosened its hold on Bakugo and gave him enough time to breathe. Izuku bolted towards Bakugo and grabbed his arm. Explosion copied. He started pulling on Bakugo's arm and was able to free a part of his upper body, but the villain managed to recover in time and tried to attack Izuku once again. Before the attack hit its mark, a big muscular man with gravity-defying hair jumped in from nowhere and grabbed the two teenagers. One for all copied. One for all evolved advanced one for all. The man pulled them out of the sludge villain and prepared to finish this with his famous smashes. All Might. Detroit, SMMASSSSSHHHHH. All Might landed the hit, which blasted the villain into oblivion, but the air pressure kept on going, which created a mini tornado. That tornado put out the fire and rose towards the sky. After a few seconds it disappeared, but it soon started raining afterward, and people couldn't help but comment on how All Might changed the weather with a single punch. Once everything calmed down, All Might let go of the two and faced them. Before anyone could even let out a breath of relief. All Might, what the hell did you think you were doing? I told you that you'd only get in the way of everything, and I had to jump in and save you. You could have gotten yourself killed. Everyone was stunned of the sudden outburst from All Might scolding Izuku, and people started recording it live. People across Japan and possibly the world were watching. All Might, what did I tell you? If you don't have a quirk, you can't do anything to help. No matter what you try to do, you'll only cause problems for everyone else. After All Might turned away from Izuku and started talking to Bakugo, complimenting him on his bravery and will to still keep on fighting. He gave him a card in case he needed some help, while Izuku was standing there, watching, and soon heard laughter around him. He realized that he was scolded in front of everyone and they were recording, so he quickly made a dash out of there. He needed to get home and tell his mother about his quirk. And maybe, just maybe, things might be different from now on. He was running as fast as possible to avoid all the laughter that was around him. Halfway there, he was cut off by an explosive punch to the face that nearly broke his nose. He fell down, clutching his nose, but didn't have a chance to see who did it until he got another explosive punch to the side of his face. Bakugo, you useless brat. Why did you try to save me? Did I look like I needed saving? And if you ever think I need your help again, I'll kill you myself. The Pomeranian walked off, leaving a bruised Izuku still on the ground, but he slowly got up and walked the rest of the way home to find his mom, who already waiting for him. Before he could explain to her where he was pulled into a bone-crushing hug. Weak telekinesis copied. Weak telekinesis evolved psychokinesis. Izuku couldn't breathe and was about to pass out, but got freed and was being thoroughly checked over. Inko, your nose is bleeding, but it doesn't look broken, so it can be fixed, and I'm guessing you didn't get it from that sludge villain? Izuku nodded. Inko, I'm going to guess Bakugo did this. There's scorch marks on your face. I should really give that boy a piece of my mind. Before Inko could do anything serious, Izuku stopped her. Izuku, Mom, I awakened my quirk today. Inko, you're joking? Izuku, no, I'm dead serious, and you know the interesting part about it? Inko, what? Izuku, I can copy other quirks and make them my own. I already copied 4 quirks, and including yours. Inko, that's amazing, honey. Izuku, but there's something even cooler about it. I can take, give, copy, evolve, and divide quirks, meaning I can evolve your quirk if you want me to. Inko, is that even safe? Izuku, I haven't tried it yet, but I already have an evolved version of your quirk, so let me see if I can take your quirk and evolve it, then give it back. You'll be stronger and able to protect yourself better. Inko thought it over, but ultimately accepted. Izuku placed his hand on her mother's head, and a black flame appeared. He felt her quirk floating around. He slowly took it from her and evolved it before giving it back, and asked she how she felt. Inko, weirdly enough, it feels like my old quirk, but slightly different. Izuku, why not try lifting the coffee table to see if it's stronger? Inko walked over to the coffee table and focused on it. A few seconds passed, and it began to float. She was amazed that she can lift something bigger than a coffee mug. She gently put it down and looked at her son with tears. She rushed him and pulled into another bone-crushing hug, squeezing the air out of him, which knocked him out. It was the weekend and Izuku wanted to test out the quirks he copied, so he made his way downstairs to find floating appliances everywhere, doing different things. He found his mom in the kitchen preparing breakfast. She spotted her son and greeted him and told him to take a sit. After he sat down, a floating plate of eggs, bacon, toast and pancakes were placed on the table with a glass of juice. Later she joined him and they started eating. Halfway into breakfast, Izuku told Inko that he was going to go test out his new quirks at the trash beach and maybe start cleaning it up as a form of training. Inko agreed and told him to be careful. After he finished breakfast, he set off along the way. People were laughing at him from yesterday, but he didn't care. He knew they were going to go regret those words soon. After a 10-minute walk, he made it to the beach, which was very filthy. Ever since trash started washing up from the shore, it began piling up, and people took advantage of that by dumping their own trash. The government never tried to clean it up, so it just kept getting more trashed. Izuku was walking deeper into the trash jungle until he found a spot that was open towards the sea and decided this is where he'll be training. He first started with water manipulation. He started small by pushing and pulling the water in a wave-like motion until he was controlling it like he had this power from the very beginning of his life. It felt natural. He found out that he could also create water by sucking in moisture from the air and started forming water balls. He moved on to wood manipulation but realized there was no fresh soil anywhere, so he put it off for another time. Explosion. He was a bit disgusted that he had that prick's power, but was also excited to learn how the quirk really worked. He started off with small explosions until he got to massive ones. He tried setting off explosions from different places on his body. The only other place he could set them off were his feet, which allowed him to fly a bit, but was also taxing because he needed to stay focused. Next was the Quirk Advanced One for All. He felt the power generated from yesterday, and it kept on growing. So, he started with small amounts throughout his body. His skin glowed with red veins growling around him with black lightning arching around his body and was increasing with intensity. He reached 100% but felt like he can go beyond a 100. But put that off until he was more prepared. He dialed the percentage back to about 5% and faced the ocean. He let loose a punch. That punch split the ocean in two and the air pressure blew some of the clouds away. He was amazed he did that, but felt like something was off. The quirk felt like there's more inside than what it lets on, so he sat down and took a meditative stance. He focused on Advanced One for All. Looked within. Float unlocked. Float evolved flight. Black Whip unlocked. Black Whip evolved construct. Danger Sense unlocked. Danger Sense evolved danger prediction. Smoke Screen unlocked. Smoke Screen evolved smoke manipulation. FA Gene unlocked. FA Gene evolved kinetic stockpile. Gear Shift unlocked. Gear Shift evolved velocity manipulation. Izuku opened his eyes and felt all the new quirks he unlocked. He needed to them out. The first was flight and started flying around the beach so he could get used to the feeling of being weightless. The next was construct. He started by creating shapes with the black energy constructs. It wasn't that difficult to do since they felt like molding clay and they were too fluid, which made it easier to control. He then moved on to smoke manipulation. He produced smoke from different parts of his body and made clouds above him to block out the sun. The color was dark in color, but he did have slight influence and decided what they could be. Kinetic stockpile was the next up. He wasn't exactly sure how to use it, but figured out that it works the same way as Advanced One for All. Instead of generating energy, it collects kinetic energy and stores it. Then he could release it anytime he wants. Finally, the last quirk. Velocity manipulation. He picked up a rock and threw it, but slowed down its velocity to a complete halt. It stood still in midair until he increased its velocity to its maximum, and it shot off into the sea. It hit the water and exploded, sending out a bunch of waves. For the past weekend, he's been practicing his new quirks. Until Monday, where something interesting would happen. Izuku woke up a bit earlier than usual. He sat on the edge of his bed and had a weird feeling that something was going to happen, whether it be good or bad. He took a quick shower and dressed in his school uniform. He found his mother already ready for work and just finished preparing breakfast. After she finished, they sat down and ate their food until Izuku asked her a question. Izuku, you can feel it too? Inko, yeah, I'm just hoping nothing bad happens, but if it does, at least we can defend ourselves. Izuku, yeah? They finished breakfast and made their way to the bus station. People were still snickering about what happened last week and also started making fun of Inko for being his mother, but she ignored it. She was already used to this. They arrived at their stop and made their way to school/work, but that feeling never went away. Inko dropped off Izuku, said her goodbyes, and made her way to work. Izuku walked through the school gate and was already being laughed at until he made it to his class. He sat down and ignored everyone. Class started, but it was mostly just talks about the future career choices until lunch. He didn't make any lunch. Instead, he went to the library and sat down by the window, looking out the front of the school, but what he saw brought joy to his soul. Multiple black vans with the word SWAT written in bold drove up the school's front gate, where dozens of heavily armed men in black swarmed out of the vans and immediately started to arrest people on sight. Even if you were a teacher, staff member, or student, you would be arrested with extreme force. The next person to exit the vans was the human lie detector, Detective Naomasa Tsukauchi. Wearing his classic trench coat and hat, he was slowly making his way past the arrested criminals until he stopped to look at an odd sight. Bakugo, what are you gonna do, you armed extras? SWAT number 1. Terrorist is resisting arrest, requesting backup. Bakugo, who you calling a terrorist, you extra? I'm the future number 1 hero you're talking to. SWAT number 2. Surround him and grab the water guns. We needs to get him wet to neutralize his quirk. SWAT number 3. Where are we going to get a water gun? SWAT number 2. It's in the van. Didn't you check the equipment? SWAT number 3. Yes, I did. But I thought those were toys. SWAT number 2. They aren't. Those are state-of-the-art, high-pressure water guns. SWAT number 1. Would you guys stop having this conversation and help me, please? They stopped arguing and pulled out the water guns. They sprayed Bakugo from all sides until he looked like a wet Pomeranian. Bakugo was pissed and started acting like a rabid dog. Bakugo, you shitty extras are gonna pay when I get my hands on you. SWAT number 1, dogpile him. They all rushed Bakugo and tackled him to the ground and cuffed him with quirk-canceling cuffs. They soon moved him to the minivans filled with arrested criminals. While this was happening, Izuku was having the time of his life after seeing that display. The arrests have been happening all over the school until they got to the library, where they found Izuku taking pictures of everything that was happening. The detective soon approached him. Detective, are you Izuku Midoriya? Izuku. Yup, and I'm to assume you're the detective I need to talk to? Detective. Yes, if you would follow me. Izuku. Before that, is this also happening at my mother's workplace? Detective. Yes, you'll meet her back at the station. Meanwhile, coworker. You son of a. When I get back out, I'll parentally make your life a living hell. SWAT number 4. Take her down. They all dogpile her and spray her with water. Izuku. All right then, and when we get there, I'm going to need your help with something. Detective. I'll help as much as I can. Izuku followed the detective outside the school, where people were being arrested left and right. They all saw Izuku walking alongside the detective and gave him death glares. The detective noticed this and added that on to the increasing number of charges of all of the involved. They made it to the car and drove off towards the station where his mother was probably waiting. It was quiet for most of the ride, with Izuku staring out the window until they made it. They exited the car and made their way indoors, where they soon entered into a room with a table and chairs with Inko already sitting. They sat down and started talking. Izuku, before we get started, can you tell whoever or whatever is watching us to come inside, because I feel like this also involves them. The detective was a bit surprised that he knew someone was watching through the class, so he complied and called them in. What walked in was a bear, or maybe a dog, probably a mouse. It walked in the room and climbed up on the table and presented itself. Hello, am I a dog or bear or maybe a mouse? But it doesn't matter because I am the principal of UA. Please, call me Nezu. Izuku, you're a chimera, and by the looks of it, you were probably experimented on to become what you are now. Nezu was taken aback by this, but managed to shake it off before speaking. Nezu, you're a smart one, I see, and you are right. I am a chimera and have been experimented on, but I want to know is how you knew that? Izuku, me, my mother and you are much alike. You were experimented on because you had a high-specs quirk. I was mostly used as a quirk testing dummy and punching bag, and my mother was mostly a stress reliever, not in that way at her workplace. But most importantly, we've all been branded, as a reminder that we belong to them. Nezu, Unfortunately, you are correctly. Us three have been the victims of human cruelty, but before we continue, I want to know how you knew what my quirk is. Izuku. That brings me to my favor. I need help registering my quirk. Detective. But it says that you were born quirkless. Izuku. I awakened it last week and I couldn't get it registered because my quirk is far too dangerous for the government to know about. Nezu. And why is that? Izuku. Because it's called Advanced All-for-One. Both of them paled at hearing the name of the quirk. Izuku took notice of that. Izuku. I'm going to guess this wasn't the first time someone had this quirk? Nezu. No, someone did posse's it, but it wasn't advanced, it was normal. Can you tell me what makes yours different? Izuku. My Advanced All-for-One can let me take, give, combine, copy, split, and evolve any quirk. I've already copied and evolved 5 quirks. One specific quirk gave me 6 other quirks. Detective. And what is this specific quirk? Izuku. It's called One for All. I think I copied it from All Might and evolved it to Advanced OFA. After a while I found that it had hidden quirks within. Nezu and the detective were very confused, because they thought OFA couldn't be copied, but they'll think more on that later. Nezu. Alright, we'll help you with your quirk registration, but we'd have to classify it as top secret. So, that there wouldn't be people coming after you. But for now, let's get on to your education and your mother's employment. Izuku. We've already planned for that. I would be taking online classes until I get a few PhDs, while cleaning up the beach for the UA entrance exams for next year. Inko. I'm not sure what to do about employment. I saved us a lot of money, so we could move, but that was before Izuku awakened his quirk and also evolved mine. So, I was thinking maybe nursing, but no hospital could accept me. Nezu heard them and thought something over. Nezu, why don't I make you two an offer? Why don't you two stay at the UA campus? We'll build you a dorm where both of you can live at, which would be next to mine, deep in the forest section of UA. Young Midoriya will still have his online classes until the UA entrance exam, and he is allowed to leave the campus via secret pathways that takes you a few blocks away from UA, so he could still continue cleaning up the beach. He'll be allowed to use our facilities after the school day ends, and you, Ms. Midoriya, can come work as an assistant nurse for our own recovery girl, and don't worry, you'd still get paid. How does that sound? Izuku and Inko looked at each other and had a telepathic conversation. Izuku. So what do you think? Should we accept? Inko. He looks like he's telling truth, and this also helps solve some of our problems. Izuku. Yeah, and I also like this guy. He looks like the type of person to go to if you had plans for world domination. Inko. Izuku. Why would you want world domination? Izuku. I want to change how discrimination has affected our society, and he looks like he has the same plan. If both of us work together, I'm pretty sure by the time I graduate and become a hero, we'd have had enough blackmail to enforce the laws we want changed. Inko. Alright, sweetie, we'll do it, and I'll support you all the way. Izuku. Thanks, Mom. Izuku and Inko, we accept. Nezu. Splendid. I'll make the necessary preparations. All you need to do is pack all your belongings and prepare to move in by tomorrow. Izuku. Thanks, and before you go, you wouldn't mind me copying you and the detective's quirks. I feel like they might be useful. Nezu. I don't mind at all. Detective. I don't see any problem in that. They both offered their hands and Izuku them. High specs copied. High specs evolved peak human mind. Polygraph copied. Polygraph evolved fact or fiction. Izuku. Thank you, and I'll be seeing you tomorrow, Nezu. Nezu likewise. Copied and evolved quirks. Advanced One for All allows its user to continuously generate and store energy over time. This energy can be utilized in various ways, such as powering themselves, enhancing their physical abilities, or unleashing powerful energy blasts. The quirk operates on a steady accumulation principle, meaning the user can build up energy even in a non-combative state, making it possible to unleash devastating attacks when needed. Flight allows the user to soar through the air and move freely without the hindrance of gravity. Construct. User can create a dense, inky black energy that they can shape and manipulate. This energy can take various forms, such as a solid barrier, a projectile, or even a structure. Danger prediction allows its user to instinctively sense dangerous situations or imminent threats. This ability grants the user heightened awareness of potential hazards, helping them to avoid harm or take necessary actions to protect themselves and others. Smoke manipulation allows the user to control, create, and manipulate smoke in various forms. This quirk can be used both defensively and offensively. Kinetic Stockpile allows the user to absorb kinetic energy from impacts or movements and store it for later use. This stored energy can be unleashed in various ways, providing the user with enhanced strength, speed, or explosive power when needed. Velocity Manipulation. It allows a user to control the speed and movement of objects or individuals, either by increasing or decreasing their velocity. Psychokinesis allows its user to manipulate objects and exert force on them using only their mind, without any physical contact. Explosion allows the user to excrete nitroglycerin-like sweat from their body and ignite it at will to create explosions of various sizes. Water Manipulation allows an individual to control and manipulate water in various forms. Users of this quirk can create, shape, and move water at will, enabling them to perform a range of abilities such as generating water projectiles, creating barriers, or manipulating the flow of water in their environment. Wood Manipulation allows its user to control, create, and manipulate wood in various forms. This ability can include growing trees and plants rapidly, reshaping wooden objects, and even using wood as a weapon or shield. Fact or Fiction grants its user the ability to discern the truthfulness of statements through a unique interaction with the fabric of reality. When the user hears a statement, the quirk activates, and they can perceive a visual and auditory manifestation of the statement's truthfulness. Peak Human Mind. User possesses cognitive abilities that operate at the maximum potential of the human brain. This could include enhanced memory, accelerated learning, superior problem-solving skills, advanced analytical thinking, and perhaps an almost photographic memory. So, this was the end of part 1 of this series. Stay tuned for next part of this series, and if you like this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Until next time.